Hey everybody, and welcome back to the CPA Advisory Show. My name is Chris Hervishon. I'm here with my co-host, Jeremy Wells. Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks, Chris. How are you?
Never better, man. Best day ever. So today we're going to be recapping a little bit about what CAS is and then talking about the services that you should wrap into your CAS offering. So as a recap of last episode, Jeremy, what do you think CAS is? What are the services that we offer? What does it mean?
It's interesting because each of these letters can have a slightly different meaning depending on what your take is on it. For the C, I think you came out last week and said cloud, and
Yep.
I had always heard client. I think they're both right. I don't think there's any right or wrong when it comes to this. I think as long as your focus is on doing good work for your clients and helping them and use what we've got available as far as technology and what we know about accounting and capabilities to do good things for our clients, do helpful things for our clients. I don't think it really matters how exactly you define these, but for the C, we said cloud and or client. And then for the A, it's accounting and or advisory. Again, multiple options existing out there. When you Google CAS, you'll see a couple different variations on this. Again, we had a discussion about, can you be doing the advisory without doing the accounting? Do you need to be doing the accounting to do the advisory? But they go hand in hand, really. And it's a combination of these different things. But I really liked where we settled, which was just be helpful. And I think that's really the key here is listening to your clients, talking to your clients, finding out what they need from you and thinking about how you can be more helpful to them. Again, this is a client-centric way of thinking about running your tax and accounting firm.
So what I heard you just say was that we agree on the S, though.
The S is services, right? We're doing stuff for clients. And I think this gets back to what the definition that we settled on, which was just be helpful. And so what does that mean? It reminded me of the line in Glengarry Glen Ross. Alec Baldwin gives this great speech and he says, "Or always be closing." And it's, okay, great, but what does that mean? I still need help. I still need to know what I need to do in order to be closing or in order to be helpful. Give me some specifics that I can go out there and tell clients. Because I think a lot of times, this is something that I come up with, a client is relatively naive when it comes to the world of business and accounting and finance. And they're usually just coming to me for a tax return. Or they're usually just coming to me because they don't want to screw things up. It's up to me as the expert to diagnose the problem and then start recommending suggestions. I don't go to the doctor and tell the doctor what medicine to prescribe to me. I go to the doctor and I say, look, something's not right. And then the doctor does what the doctor does. And eventually I'll walk out of there with some sort of prescription or something that's supposed to make me feel better. So I think sometimes we need a little bit of direction in terms of, okay, we want to be helpful, but how? And so that's what I thought would be a good focus for this episode, was maybe giving a little bit more tactical direction to some people listening in that are interested in CAS or don't really still know what CAS is, or what's the very next thing I need to do to be doing CAS. Maybe I'm already trying to be helpful, but maybe there's something that I haven't heard of yet that I could be doing to be more helpful.
Okay, so here's a softball for you. When it comes to being helpful, who gives that direction? Where should that direction come from?
I think that is the biggest and most difficult question when it comes to building a client-focused professional firm. I think this extends beyond accounting. Like I said, if I'm an MD, I want to be a helpful doctor. It doesn't mean that I am going to always know exactly what every patient needs. Sometimes I'm going to need to refer them out to specialists. But at the same time, I can't assume that every patient coming to me has the exact same idea or ability to explain to me what it is that's bothering them. So I think as an accountant, I have to assume that when a prospective client is coming to me, I need to walk in with almost no assumptions about what this person knows about business, how long they've been in business, what their level of business acumen is. And so when I go into those conversations, I'm asking a lot of questions, and the first thing I'm trying to do is not figure out what services to sell them. The first thing I'm trying to figure out is just how much do they really understand about business, so that I can start thinking about the way I'm going to be asking those questions. If I have a client or a prospective client that I'm talking to that's been in business for 20 years and they read financials every week, then I'm going to skip all the questions of somebody who's been a freelancer for 6 months and has no idea how business and accounting. So I think it depends. It depends on the person on that call with you or in that meeting with you.
So here's what I would posit. I would posit that the direction ultimately comes from the client based on exactly what you said, asking those questions and just getting a sense of where are you in business and then what are your pain points. And I think that one of the opportunities that we have as accountants generally when we're talking about developing skills is asking better questions. Like I tell my team all of the time, all of this basically starts with your ability to ask questions and ask better questions. Strategy starts with questions. So how can we get better at asking questions and then really performing the analysis and providing the prescription of this is what this particular client needs, because they're all different. Every owner is different. Every business is different. The people that they serve is different. It's all different. So it does depend on whatever it is that specific client or potential client needs.
So what's a better question? I talked to some new bookkeepers or tax preparers, for example, and they're asking questions about pricing. How should I price this service? How should I price this tax return? And I'll just start saying, what's your conversation with the client? How did the value conversation go? And they have no idea what I'm talking about, right? Because to them, the client came to them and said, hey, do my tax return. Here's my W-2. Here's my 1099 div. Do my tax return. And they say, great, $200, $300, however much. I'll do your tax return. And there was no questioning. There was no conversation, right? Because to them, it was somebody is asking me to do something and they're willing to pay me for it. And I'm just getting started. So I need the money. So I'm just going to go do the work that they told me to do. To me, that's a little bit too client driven, right? There's no discussion. There's no questioning. And what would you say, maybe give an idea of what the first question or the first couple questions need to be, assuming somebody that's not really done any of this before on either side. We get clients coming to us and maybe it's the first time that I've got some clients that this year was the first year they ever had to file a tax return because they're coming right out of college. It was the first time they've ever made money and they've ever had to file a tax return. They don't know what I do. And to be frank, with the kinds of businesses that they're starting and running, I don't really know what they do yet. So what's the first couple questions? Like, how would you get that conversation started to start pushing toward that client-driven relationship?
Generally, what I want to be asking are open-ended questions and then questions that I would describe as a little bit more difficult. And what I mean by a little bit more difficult is that they make the client think. And where I usually start is tell me about what it is you do and who you do it for. And actually, I'll give you my exact list. What do you do? How do you do it for? How did you come up with the name for your business? Because I feel like there's usually a pretty good story there and you get some nuggets out of that.
That's an interesting.
What does your current tech stack look like? Which gets back into my definition of CAS is cloud accounting and advisory services. So we start with cloud. So I want to know the tech stack. This is one of my favorites, which is what are the questions you want to be able to ask about your business and what are the ones that you currently can't answer? That helps with the diagnosis as well. Number 5 is what does your current accounting process look like? Number 6 is what is the end goal for the business? What is the vision? Where are we trying to get to? How can we help you get there? That's really what I'm trying to get at for myself. And then I ask, who are your main competitors? And then on what basis do you compete? And then after all of that, I've got a pretty good idea of where that particular business owner is and what they're thinking, what their pain points are. And then I always follow that up with what is the question I should have asked that I didn't? So hard questions, open-ended questions, and then I get a sense of where they are, what they're doing, how they do it, who they're doing it for. And I've also got some accounting questions wrapped in there, which are boring to them, but they're interesting to me. So I can figure out this is how I need to package this. This is the data that I need to be able to get to. And this is why I need to be able to get to it so I can answer the questions that they currently can't answer about.
I think that's gold right there. I think you just gave away the shop right there. But yeah, to me, it's pretty similar to the questions that I'm asking because I try to lead off with what I call the big vision or the big result. What is the client really trying to achieve? I think they walk in the door think they're trying to achieve a low tax bill when really
Yeah.
There's something much bigger and broader than that. And it can, I've had conversations go both ways with that. And not many go the wrong way, where it's like, hey, all I'm talking about is a tax return. Like, I don't need all this other stuff that you're asking me about. I just need a tax return done because it's April 12th. Right? Let's just get this done. Of course, I'm not really taking calls on April 12th much anymore, but there was a time.
Congratulations, you just got an extension.
Yeah, there was a time when I was happy to take a new client call on April 12th, but those days are gone now. But yeah, on the flip side of that, I think what a lot of firm owners and accountants would benefit from is thinking about the fact that those questions are not just helping you figure out what services to offer or what proposal to send to that prospect, but really just, do you even want to work with that prospect at all? Because if you have someone that is struggling to answer those questions or is dodgy when they're answering those questions, these are red flags, and big red flags. So this sort of jump to say, okay, I'm going to do CAS, I need to start figuring out what services, and I need to try to sell those services. There's a couple of steps before that, and I think your questions are hitting on the first one, which is figure out exactly who you want to work with to begin with, that you can be most helpful for, before you start trying to figure out what services you're going to offer and what tech stack you need to offer all those services.
Yeah, and we're looking for red flags in all of those questions. Here's a great one, but if you ask a potential client, like, who are your competitors, and they say, oh, we don't have any competitors, it's almost never true, unless you've got some sort of a monopolistic business, which really isn't usually the case with the size of company that we're servicing. That's a red flag. Or if you say, oh yeah, I'm on QuickBooks Desktop and I love it and I've been on it since the 80s and I'm not going to change, well, that's not going to work either. Dodginess, no sense of humor, that's the kind of stuff that we look for as far as red flags. Like, we're just probably not going to want to work together and it's probably not going to work out well. But there's all sorts of red flags in that line of questioning that'll jump out at you. So with that said, I'm curious, what does your process look like? How do you get people on an initial call? How do you even get to the point where you can ask them these questions? What do you do after that? What does your process look like?
Yeah, and this is always a work in progress for me because I've only been doing this for a few years. At first, it was just a lot of referrals, and I think that's pretty typical of a brand new solo firm, relying on the scraps that others throw at to start building the base of your business. And from that, figuring out what kind of clients I really wanted to work with. Now, it's a bit more of a refined process. I have a better idea of the kinds of clients that I want to work with. I also have a better idea of what kinds of questions and what kind of process I want to put them in order to weed out the prospects that I don't want to work with. And so what might look like, and I've been told this, right, that I'm putting up too many barriers to becoming a client, this kind of thing. And that's deliberate, right? The process is built in such a way that if you can't follow this process, or if part of this process frustrates you enough to say, I don't want to do this, that's actually a good thing on my end. So that process starts off pretty simply with scheduling a Calendly call with me, scheduling a call through a service. It's a calendar service called Calendly. I set it up on my end and I send you a link that's specifically for what I call a discovery call. And you get that link, you click on it, and it shows you times that you can schedule that call with me. And when you do that, I have a few questions there that I'm asking. Calendly has changed the way they're structuring that, so I need to go back and revise that questionnaire a bit. But getting some ideas beforehand that's going to give me that idea. Again, are there red flags? Are we going to be a good fit? Are you in an industry that I'm interested in? Have you gotten your business to a level where you've proven the concept, but you're also early enough to where it's not going to be a whole lot of cleanup work and a whole lot of busy work just to get you straightened up in time to actually do the tax return? And so answer those few questions. And something that I've been doing for the last 6 months or so that I've actually found to be beneficial is I've made that a paid call. And so it's a few $100, and I think I've changed the price a couple different times. But this is a recommendation that I got from Jamie O'Kane, another CPA, who she recommends this to just about everybody. That a paid call, and there are a few other colleagues of mine that I respect that have also gone along with it and implemented that. So I've made it a paid call. One time I've gotten somebody complain about the fact that it was a paid call and they just wanted a free call. They thought I shouldn't have to pay well, I'm sorry. Again, it seems like a barrier to end, but it's actually part of the process to see if you're serious about working together. So then when you schedule that discovery call, we go a little bit and I spend more time. And really the point of that is me trying to convince you that either you don't really need me or that trying to figure out whether you convince me whether you think it would be a good fit or not. I'm friendly, I'm polite, but at the same time, you're the one with the burden of proof. You've got to be showing me that you think this would be a good fit, because I am not your tax shop around the corner. I'm not your accounting firm around the corner that is taking anybody and everybody and then just trying to figure it out after the fact. I have limited capacity. It's just me. When it comes to the tax work, when it comes to the review work, it's just me. So I have to be very deliberate, very selective about who gets in. And if it's somebody that seems like we'd be a good fit, and if I think, again, I can help the business, if I think I can just be helpful, then sure, we'll try it out. And from that point, they get a proposal from me. If they like the terms of the proposal, then they sign up and we start working for them. How about you?
Very cool. Yeah, we're somewhat similar. So we start with a discovery call. And that's where I go through the questions that I just outlined a couple minutes ago. And the way that you get on a discovery call, you're going to book it through a link on my website, and the link is just about everywhere. So there's a number of spots where you can book it from. We go through the discovery call, have a chat. It's usually about 45 minutes. And then at the end of that call, if it seems like we might be a good fit, what I'll always ask for is accountant access to QuickBooks Online, because they're probably on QuickBooks Online if they've gotten to us, or accountant access to Xero, whatever that specific access is called. I am not a Xero expert, so I can poke around. And then I'll ask for 2 years of tax returns, set them up with access to our client portal so they get a little bit of a sense of how we operate and how we share things. I feel like that's another one of those ways where you can weed out clients who aren't going to be maybe they just don't enjoy our portal experience, maybe they do, but it's a good way to weed those out. And then once I'm done reviewing that, what I'm looking for is, what do the financials look like? What is it that they told me on our discovery call? And then how does that compare with what I'm actually seeing in the financials? Are those things different? Do they have good, clean books? Are they reconciling on a consistent basis? Are they profitable? Is there weird stuff going on with the chart of accounts, that sort of thing? So I'll take a look at that. I spend probably no more than 30 minutes on that. I'll spend probably another 10 to 15 minutes just looking at the tax return, seeing what things look like. And then I'll reach out and I'll say, hey, I've had a chance to review all your stuff. Let's get on a strategy call. And in the strategy call, I put together a PowerPoint deck and I go through it. So I talk about who our team is, what we do, how we advise throughout the year, because there's like a certain cadence to that, what the meetings look like, how the agenda is laid out. And then I'll go through and I'll repeat back to them what they basically told me in the discovery call. This is the situation that you are in, and these are the pain points. Hey, you're a marketing agency and you're doing $4 million a year and you've got this many employees, and the problem is X. And then I'll say, is that right? And they'll say, yes, usually, because I'm just repeating back what they said to me. And then I'll get into, all right, here's some benchmarking that I do. And I use a software called Profit Sense. I'll take their financials and I'll just do some very high level benchmarking against what they are and then what Profit Sense says they are. And generally, I'm delivering a little bit of value there. And generally, clients like to see that. And then I'll say, okay, here are the problems that we're trying to solve in no more than 3 to 5. And then here are the tactical ideas. These are the ideas that I have. These are the things that we can get quick wins or relatively quick wins. So 90 days, certainly no more than 6 months if it's like a bigger issue that they're having. And I'll say, how's that sound? And they'll say, okay, cool. And then I'll go through 3 options. So we've got 3-tiered pricing. It's standard. It's on our website. It's published. By the time you've gotten to a discovery call with us, you've already seen it. I can see that in our CRM. I can see by the time that they booked that discovery call, what pages on the website that they visited. So the pricing really should not be a surprise at this point. And I'll just say, hey, these are the 3 options. This is where I think you fit. These are the problems that we can solve in each of these 3 tiers. And it is going to be some percentage of revenue. I think that's helpful to just put that into context. Like, hey, it's going to cost you like 2% of revenue for your entire accounting function. Seems like a good deal to me, but that's that. And then after that, I'll just say, hey, I don't need a decision right now, but if you do decide to move forward, here are the expectations. Like, hey, we're going to be a little bit slower during tax season. Obviously, we're going to use our own bank rules. We're going to use our own chart of accounts. You're going to submit documents to the portal, like all of the things that are peculiar to working with us. And at that point, if they feel like we're a good fit, then we're probably a good fit. And then that's pretty much it. And then we'll start the onboarding process, which is a whole other animal for a whole other show, but that's the way that we do it.
Chris, I just need a tax return done, man. Like,
Yeah. Good luck.
I love it. I love how, again, I think some people would look at that as a lot of barriers to entry, and I look at that as making sure that as much as possible that it's going to be a good fit, that you can be helpful to that client. You're already being very helpful. You're already bringing a lot of value before that client's really even signed on. And I think that's another interesting part about this discovery call process is it's almost like a counseling session, right? It's like just you're almost putting that client on the couch and getting them to dig deep into their own psyche a little bit about what the real problems are. The problem is not that you need a tax return done, right? The fact that you don't have your tax return done already and you don't know who's doing your tax return, that's a sign of a much bigger problem. So let's start getting at that. Let's figure out what that problem is. Good deal.
When you get into the barriers to entry, what happens when you bring in a bad client? You're not a good fit, but you bring them in just because you need the revenue or you want the revenue. And then 3 months later, 6 months later, whatever it is, it shakes out that they're really not a good client. You terminate the relationship and they leave you a 1-star review on Google. How many thousands of dollars are those 1-star reviews going to cost you? Which is why you don't bring in bad clients.
So you mentioned a few different things in the discovery process that you're looking for. One of them that stood out to me was the software choices. You mentioned QuickBooks Online versus Xero. How important is that? How important is the client's existing tech stack in your process, thinking about CAS, which you're defining as cloud, right? And so the tech stack is going to be a big part of that. Are you saying that you won't work with clients because of particular software choices? Are you bringing on clients that you're not well versed in that software, but you figure you'll learn it as you go once you onboard that client? How does software fit into your definition of what's a good client versus not a good?
We're interested in the tech stack in the sense that we want to know how difficult the onboarding process is going to be. And there are clients we won't work with based on the tech stack. If they say, hey, we're only going to be on Xero, then we're just not going to be a good fit. What we're more interested in really is their open-mindedness. So how willing are they to move from Xero to QBO, or how willing are they to implement a bill payment system? And we use Melio for that. Or how willing are they to migrate payroll softwares because we only use Gusto? The odds are really good based on our niche market that they're going to be fairly close to our ideal tech stack, but certainly like the GL for us is going to be a barrier to entry. We just can't support all of the GLs. We can't support all of the software. I can't train my people on all of the things, and I don't want to create friction for the people that I work with, the people on the team, because today's labor market, that's going to be difficult. We want to create the least amount of friction in working for this firm as humanly possible. We want to make it the best experience. And just having everybody needing to be an expert on every single thing, in my opinion, it's a friction point. And then also it makes it very difficult to standardize, makes it very difficult to automate. It makes it very difficult to gain efficiencies. In my mind, apart from bringing on more clients and having a larger potential market, which is not really what I'm going for. I'm not trying to be a big four firm tomorrow, but apart from that, there's really no upside to it for me.
I always get a lot of these. You think about how I want to say this? A lot of these services now have their badges that you can proudly display on your websites, right? You're a pro advisor or you're certified in this particular software service. And when I look at a bookkeeper or tax preparer's or accounting firm's website and I see half a dozen of these listed and 3 of them are all in the same sort of software, right? Like you said, I see 3 different GL software pro advisor badges. And I see that there's only 1 or 2 people working in that firm. It makes me a little, because and I started off that way too. When I knew I wanted to start an accounting firm, one of the very first things I did was go get Xero certified, go get QBO certified. This way I can just be helpful to almost anybody, because those are probably 2 of the biggest bookkeeping options out there. And I quickly realized that was not going to be sustainable. I needed to pick one or the other for myself, because that context switching and that mindset shift, even though they're both bookkeeping softwares, just the workflow, the way they look, the way you interact with them was so different that I knew that I couldn't do both. And I did have a client for a while that was on Xero, even though I was putting all my other clients on QBO. And that client relationship was always strained for my own reasons, because I just resisted doing the bookkeeping work because I didn't want to go to Xero because I felt much more comfortable in QBO. And the tech stack shouldn't be a source of resistance when it comes to working with a client. Now, along with tech stack, I think the first tech decision is not really signing up for a service. To me, it's which bank you use, because anymore the choice of a bank it's almost like a tech decision, right? Like, you're signing up for this service that is going to perform a function for you. Yeah, it's holding onto your cash, and some bank services you can use it for more. I've got one client that uses a bank, and they also run all their payment collections through that. To me, I think the bank is almost as much a part of the tech stack as all the rest of it, because I've got to be able to log into it, I've got to be able to go pull statements from it, I've got to be able to check the transactions, all this kind of stuff. And man, the variation, this is something I did not expect before I came into accounting, but the variation in banks in terms of how accessible they are, how willing they are to work with small business owners and their accountants, how willing they are to work with bookkeeping software, that level of variation just baffles me. I don't understand how we can't all get on the same page. And that's actually become probably one of the biggest qualifiers, like one of the easiest just cuts of, sorry, if you're working with this bank and you're not willing to change, we can't do business together. Because there are some banks out there that there's no way I can do your work for you if you continue using that bank.
100% agree. And that's something that I totally failed to mention, was that we consider the bank as part of the tech stack as well. And if you were to ask my team, what is the worst thing about your job? They will always say having access to statements, having access to copies of deposits, having access to copies of checks, because that whole fetching ecosystem has been really difficult for quite some time now. Every bank is different. We don't want to have credentials to clients' accounts specifically unless we can get view-only access, because that's a risk to us. Yeah, that's been really difficult. It seems like maybe it's getting a little bit better in that world. I'm not holding my breath there. So,
yeah.
All of that said, we've got a couple minutes left. Let's pivot a little bit. So tell me, Jeremy, what do you include in your CAS offering? What are the services? What are we providing to clients? What is going to be?
Yeah, it starts with the tax return, no matter what. Can't get away from that. And so the tax return for the business and the individual, if there is a separate business return, that's always, at least in the client's mind at first, going to be what we lead off. Along with some other things. I throw in communication, I throw in tax representation, but really the tax return is the lead product there, the lead deliverable. After that comes tax planning, because I don't just want to be doing your tax returns, I also want to be shaping how the next tax return that we do is going to look. And then in order to make sure that we're doing good work on the tax return, we need to be doing good financial work all year long. So the bookkeeping is going to be part of that as well. And if you have the need for payroll, whether that's because you have an S corporation or you actually have employees, then we're going to be doing the payroll also. Aside from that, that's really the base suite of services that's going to come with every proposal that I send out, with every agreement that I have with my clients. So tax return, tax planning, bookkeeping, and payroll. Where it comes into, you talked about 3-tier pricing before, where it comes into upgrading to the next tiers for me is frequency of interaction throughout the year on top of that. So we go annual, quarterly, monthly. And then the other thing is if you have some additional need on top of that. So I've got a few clients that we handle their invoicing for them. So we're essentially handling their AR. We've got a few clients where they've got a pretty significant team of contractors that they're working with. And we call that essentially their AP, because they're contractors or they're vendors in this case. And we're building out a system where we're collaborating on determining how much each contractor needs to get paid and when, and then we're going and making sure that they're actually getting paid on time. And that's going to be on the highest tier of that 3-tier system, is those advanced services. How about you?
Very cool. Roughly the same. What we layer in, like our top 2 tiers, will say, hey, we will meet with you as much as you want. And I know that makes a lot of people nervous. It's like, how am I going to bill for that? First of all, we do subscription-based pricing. We're not billing by the hour. I'm very clear, which gets back to the be helpful thing. If you have a question, like just email it to us. That's fine. We're not going to charge you for a tenth of an hour to answer that question. If you want us to meet with you, that's fine. It's not going to be a separate bill. We're happy to be helpful. And then the other thing that we're looking for too, not just where we are the show where we're presenting financial information, but we're looking for opportunities with our clients where we can be in their leadership team meetings and listen. Always looking for opportunities to listen, because that's where the real nuggets come from. When you get on a call with a client, you start rapid fire throwing questions at them. Maybe they're just not in the mood to answer this at that particular point. Maybe they haven't thought ahead of, I need to be talking about this to my accountant. So being a fly on the wall when they're actually in the business, running the business, and getting those nuggets is a real opportunity. Cadence of the meetings, number of questions and interactions they can have with us, those are going to be unlimited with us. We're also going to be doing what we call a financial reporting package, but what some people would call a dashboard, so analytics. Helping out with custom automation, and really what that is business process automation. We'll do that as well. Compensation planning, profit sharing planning, M&A due diligence. Those are going to be the big ones, but basically anything that we can do in-house and do well and want to do, we'll do that. That's obviously going to be at the higher tier where it's everything. It's full access to the full firm, and then we scale that back as we go down the tier, but that's pretty much it. And it aligns with just
the analysis, the analytics part of it, I think is where my firm needs to, where I need to, not necessarily beef things up, but maybe explore what's out there. I think beyond the financial reporting, I haven't done a good enough job exploring what else I can be doing for my clients, because quite frankly, I don't have many clients asking for that. Again, they tend to come to me with this focus on the tax return, and they don't complain about getting a monthly set of financial statements from me that I spit out of QuickBooks. But when I'll go in there and I'll look for some patterns, I'll do a quarterly broken down by month breakdown of profit and loss and see if there's any patterns. It's the advanced analysis there that is intriguing to me, but at the same time that I haven't much time there. So seems like that's something we should probably be talking about later on, because I think for a lot of bookkeepers, and especially those coming into CAS from the tax side of things, getting more into the advanced financial analysis is, I know for me, is a little bit of a daunting kind of thing.
That would be a great topic for episode number 3.
There we go. Absolutely. So be sure to tune in next time for that one.
Very cool. Absolutely. So this has been a great discussion. I think we provide a lot of value. Episode 3 will be, I think we just committed, didn't we?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and book it.
We're going to be talking about financial reporting for CAS clients. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll catch you on another episode.